Alright, so what we got today is a brake chamber replacement. So to tell a story, pulled in a truck stop empty to stay overnight, and we're picking up a load the next morning in Findlay, Ohio. Everything's fine with the truck. Wake up the next morning, start the truck up, warm it up, get ready to leave, push in the brakes, release the brakes on the tractor and the trailer, and you know, you can hear that hissing in the air running through your knobs up here on the dash of control valves, and the air doesn't stop. It keeps going. Normally it'll hiss for 10-20 seconds, builds up pressure, and then you don't hear it. Well, it was continuously, I was losing air somewhere, so and it was on the trailer brake side, the red button side. So left that pushed in, left air to it, and set the parking brakes on the tractor, got out, went back, and I'm leaking air from the brake chamber, rear brake chamber on the driver's side, on the parking brake or emergency brake side of the chamber. So I get back in the truck. The air compressor's keeping up about 120 psi. So I figure, well, I can make them a pickup. So we drove. It's only about 20 miles. I was going to work on it while we were there being loaded, but I had to disconnect from the trailer, so couldn't do that. Got back under the trailer at 44,000 pounds, and I couldn't keep enough air in the system to air the truck up. It would, you could feel the brakes dragging. So I took a hose clamp, which is all I had at the time, and clamped the hose off to the parking brake on that chamber, and that bought me a little bit more PSI. I got up to about just under 100. Was able to drive to a truck stop where I could buy a pair of vice grips, and I took the vice grips and clamped that line completely, and then I caged the brake, and I'll show you what caging the brake is when I get back here and start to take the old one off. Basically, you're pulling at that parking brake or emergency brake spring, you're pulling it back and releasing the brake manually. So the brake will not engage if you're parked. As far as if it will still engage from the service side, I don't know. I'm not an expert, so take that for what. I don't know what it does after. I only know that it allows you to get down the road. So we were able to make delivery. It was a short trip, under 100 miles. Made it home. Bought this, which is what they call a piggyback, and it's just the emergency / parking side of brake. So I'm going to keep the service side, and what that does, I don't have to cut the rod. I don't have to measure the rod and cut it and be, you know, all precise with that, so that the brakes are within DOT guidelines. So I keep the old rod and the old service portion. It does come with a new bladder for the service side, so if there's nothing wrong with the service side, then and there's not much to it. The bladder, the rod, a round disc, and a spring, and the housing. The part that most often fails on the service side is the bladder, and they give you a new one with the piggyback. So We're going to attempt to put this on today. You can see some snow on the ground. It's cold. But the trailer repair shop couldn't get to it till Monday, and I don't have that kind of time. So I'm going to show you how to cage your brake in case of emergency, and then I will walk through putting this piggyback on my first time. So I've done my research. Hopefully I know what I'm doing. So we'll basically learn this together. Alright, so we're outside the truck, and I have the wheels chalked for safety. I have all my tools. Oh, I gotta crawl under here. I'll show you guys how to cage a brake. Now, all I've done so far as the repair, hit everything with a generous amount of WD-40 to try to keep it loosened up. Now, to cage your brakes, see that hole right there with the grooves cut in it? See it better from the side. There's supposed to be a bolt in there. It's got a little T-shape that fits through here. There's a washer and a bolt on this end. Oh, you take that out, you run the nut and washer all the way to the end of this bolt. You stick the bolt in that hole, and you got to find the grooves to where it slides in. You turn it clockwise about a quarter of a turn and pull it back out towards you, and it'll grab. And what it's doing is grabbing that coil spring on the inside of the canister there. Then you just tighten the bolt down till you can't tighten it anymore, and that's released that's taken that, it's compressed that spring, and it's released your brake. Now, this is the part of the chamber that was leaking air. So what that's going to do, since all the rest of this is good, the service side is good, I'm just replacing the emergency or the parking brake side. Now I don't have to cut the rods, disconnect the ABS, none of that stuff, make no adjustments. Now let me show you, after you have that brake caged, you're still going to leak air. So what you have to do is you have to shut down the service line. So the service line is the one that runs into what would be the front. So that was the emergency brake or the parking brake. That's the service side. That air has to be clamped off. You gotta find a way to clamp it off. Now, at first, to get me down the road, I just put a hose clamp on here and tightened it as tight as I could get it, and that helped me save a little bit of air. But then I had to buy a pair of vice grips. Now, I usually have a pair in the truck with me. I had taken them home to do some work around the house and left them there. So 20 bucks at the Pilot. And I taped this because if the vice grips were to somehow release or come undone, I didn't want to lose them. I mean, that's 20 bucks, right? So I also zip tied it on there. But I need these vice grips in order to cage the service side of the brake. And I should have brought my knife back, and I I didn't. Here we go. Coming off. Slowly but surely. There we go. I'm still gonna need my knife. Oh, I got some tin snips. I can cut these. So you can see how that's clamped that hose tight. Now that takes care of your air leak. Okay, so I apologize for the video cutting out last time. All I did was take the vice grips off the service line, disengage the parking brake for the trailer. I had shotgun hit the service brakes, and then I put the vice grips on the rod. After the service brakes came out, the rod comes out, vice grip, now that spring is caged inside of here. So when I take this apart right here with these, there's 2 bolts and nuts that hold that clamp on, that spring and plate will stay in place. But what I have to do next is take these air lines off. So I'm gonna get busy doing that. Okay, so I got the air lines off and I kind of tucked them up here out of my way. One thing I'll say about this is a 2008 Wabash trailer, and the nut size on that fitting is 11/16, but an 11/16 is kind of loose on it. So I got a 17 millimeter, and it fit tight around the nut, but only in one position. Any other position, like going around the nut, it wouldn't fit. It would only fit tight in one position. So 2 sides of that nut are different than the rest. Now once I broke it loose, I could use the 11/16 to go ahead and take it off, but they were pretty tight, and it took a 17 millimeter to get them off. But what I've done now is I put a bungee strap on that chamber, and I'm going to loosen these up slowly, and I'm going to stay out of the way. It should be fine, but just in case, 2000 psi behind that spring, and it's compressed with that bolt, just in case anything lets loose. I kind of want to be out of the line of fire, so I'll start with the bolt like this one on the other side. I'll get it mostly loose and then get this one loose, kind of leaving the clamp in place until it kind of jiggles loose, free. Nothing happens, I'll go ahead and take it all the way off, and we'll go from there. Alright, so there, I'm gonna move my glove. It's the old chamber, the piggyback. And I don't want to face that thing towards me. I want to walk it straight over to the dumpster, caging bolt and all, and get rid of it. There is the service brake diaphragm. It was in pretty bad shape. I would be surprised if I was getting brake to this particular side of the axle. It was kind of gnarled up inside there. And then there's your service brake side. There's a big spring, not a big spring, a spring behind that plate. And when you put air to it, it pushes that plate in, which is connected to the rod over here, which is caged off. So now the bungee cord worked well, held it right there in place. So throw this away, get the new one, and we'll get it back on. Now I did have some trouble. I don't see the clamp now. The clamp gave me fits. They had a safety ring on there, and I had to cut it off, and it boogered up the threads, and I had a hard time, and then I had to crack it a couple times with the hammer to get it off, but it's off, ready for the new one. All right, I'm gonna have to yell because there's a truck running beside me, but there, the new one's on. Now what you want to watch for on this is your clamp right here. make sure on the other side that it's in a position where you can get your socket on it. When I first put it on, I began to tighten it, and then I couldn't get a wrench on it. And then also you want to make sure these service ports are facing out. And when I first got it on there, they were up here under the frame, but I was just trying to get the clamp on and get it secured, and then I could turn it to where it needed to be. But now I got to put my airlines back on and go from there. Alright, airlines are back on, hopefully to the right lines. I'm pretty sure I got it right. Everything's tight. Now I just gotta have shotgun press on the service brake so I can release this, and I'm gonna have to call her on the phone to do that, so I'll get back with you here in a minute.